Hi guys, it's Dani. I am going to be showing you how I do some hand lettering today. I have not ever done this before, so it'll be interesting to see how well I do with talking and drawing, but I'm going to do my best to not just tell you about iPad tips or even hand lettering tips because I don't consider myself an expert in either of those, but I wanted to just sort of talk about my process and what I'm thinking when I'm drawing and coming up with an idea for like a hand lettered piece, and you guys can follow along in real time, but you'll see as we go on, I'll draw things and I'll try to explain my thought process behind it. So the quote I'm going to do today is "Make your own luck," and I'm going for sort of a spring St. Patrick's Day vibe. So let's see what we come up with. To start out with, I'm going to do the word luck because that is the main word and the one that I want to draw the most attention to, so that will probably be the biggest word, although that's not always the case, but that's kind of what I'm thinking here. So I have my brush, which is the bounce brush, and I'll link to that down below, and then I have a green color, selected here from my color palette that I'm going to use. And I'm going to just go right in and start with the word luck. And if you can hear any weird noises in the background, Barkley's chewing a bone and it sounds disgusting. So I apologize for that. Okay, so I'm going to drag it out, make it a little bit bigger because I really like it going off the edge. So yeah, I think that looks okay. So now I'm going to go in and give this a little bit of a calligraphy-like feel. It's obviously not calligraphy, but if you go on the downstrokes and you make things thicker, as I'm doing right here, it kind of gives it that vibe. And I'm not sure, I might want to have a little bit, I actually don't think so. I was going to say I might see how there's this like white part right there. I was going to maybe leave it to kind of give it like the lights hitting it, but I think I'm not going to do that. Just not feeling it with this one. So just cleaning it up a little and not really looking for anything to be too perfect. I want it to be clean and easy to understand, but other than that, I don't like to stress too much about like every single little thing because I think that kind of takes away from the hand lettered vibe of it. All right, so I feel like this looks okay. I could probably spend more time on it, but I don't want to drag the video out. So I'm going to move on to the next part. And I think I'm going to do, I like this space between the L and the K. So I think that would be a good spot to put own. And I'm going to do a little bit of a print rather than a scripted font with the little flourish on the O to kind of, trying to force me to draw a straight line. So that gives it like a little bit, I'm not loving the N. There we go. Just going to tweak the size of the N a little bit. A touch bigger. Okay. And then let's mess with this a little. There we go. All right, I think that looks pretty good. I can still do probably some things like cleaning it up in a little bit, but now I want to do make, and your. So kind of got to think about the spacing, and I like to just kind of wing it for the most part, but you know, I know there are plenty of people out there, hand letters, that will take measurements and have grids and make it all perfect, and I love their work, but that's not how I do it. So I'm feeling that's a little bit close to that, so I'm going to scoot up a little. And I really like to try to do all lines the same, like in one go, if you will. So, like if I mess up the your, I probably would start the whole line over again, kind of how I just did, rather than just starting the your again, because I feel like it kind of loses the flow for some reason. I don't know if it's just me or if other people feel that way when they're drawing too. But I like to kind of do one line or one section at a time. Now that isn't always the case. Like if I'm drawing like or hand lettering lots and lots of sentences and I mess up, I'm not gonna like start the whole sentence over. So here I'm just doing the downstrokes again to try to make these letters a little bit more interesting and a little bit more fancy. Ooh. So yeah. Can you guys hear Barkley chewing her bone? Barks. Do you like hand lettering? Okay. So as you can see, sometimes it takes a couple of tries, which is what is so amazing about using the iPad versus lettering by hand, because you don't get to just delete. You either have to fix it somehow or start all over. So I think that looks pretty good. It's not, perfect, but I don't want to spend like an excessive amount of time because I know you guys don't want to watch like a 2-hour long video of me making this one quote. So now I'm going to just sort of see what is going on with centering it. And sometimes the centering, like you see here, it almost, to me at least, looks like it's closer to the bottom than to the top because the luck is like heavier and bigger. So I would like scoot it up a little just so that like optically it looks centered, if that makes sense. Even though technically that might not be centered. Obviously this also depends on what you're making as well, because some things don't need to be centered. And I do find that it is actually kind of hard to get things exactly the way I want it in terms of centering on the iPad. It helps to use the magnetic versus the freeform, but it's still, I don't know, I don't feel like it's the same as if you had like an align button. Like I wish they would come out with that. Okay, so this is what we've got for the lettering. So next, I think I'm going to work on the background. I'm going to add a new layer here, and I'm going to put it below the other one. And I think for the sort of St. Patrick's Day vibe, I'm going to do a rainbow. So, oh, that is not the brush I want to use. So I'm going to go with this wash brush. It's just kind of a soft brush, and then I've got the opacity turned down, and I'm going to maybe make it a little bit bigger. And so I'm going to, I like to start when I'm doing any sort of rainbow thing, sort of with the middle colors, and this is something I've only recently sort of discovered, but I find that it really does help to sort of get proportions. Not that every part of the rainbow is going to be like exactly the same width, but in an ideal world, if you were trying to make it perfect, you would try to make them pretty close. And starting from more of a center point, I feel like gives you a little bit more flexibility. I'm going to turn this orange down a little bit. So you can kind of work from inside of the rainbow out, if that makes sense, rather than if you start up at the top or at the bottom and you do things too big or too small, you're kind of, or at least from my experience, you're more stuck, and I find it to be limiting. And doing this kind of background is a little bit time consuming, but I do it this way rather than, for example, grabbing a image off the internet or using something I've already created, because I feel like it gives it more of a handmade touch, I guess, rather than just, getting some sort of gradient from the internet. But I also find that personally, I really like doing things like this, and I find it really relaxing. So it's not really a chore for me to do a background or a rainbow like this. I really enjoy watching it come together. So as you can see, I'm just kind of going in with some of the other colors, and I'm taking them like a little bit into the colors next to them, and even a little bit further, to make them blend a little bit more. But I am going to do some more with the blending too, so I'll show you guys in a second. So then once I'm like somewhat happy with it, see it's not perfect or anything, I'm going to grab the whole layer, and then I'm going to go over here and go to blur and blur it. So I don't know, here's how you can see that's what it was, and now it's like this. So it gives it just a little bit of a smoother look. It's still the same vibe, but yeah. So I think that looks pretty good. I do feel like I want to add maybe some polka dots. I love polka dots. So I feel like those are one of my go-to things when I feel like something is just a little bit blah and I want to add a little bit of something, but I don't feel like drawing a whole image. I'll usually do polka dots, or I'll do big shapes. A lot of times I go for triangles or circles. Something like, I'll show you an example, like I would go like this, and then I would let me first of all put that on its own layer. I would do something like that, and then I would fill it in, and that kind of vibe. Or a circle. That's a shaky little circle, but like almost like big polka dots. But for this, I think I'm just going to do smaller polka dots, and I had used this Rad and Happy mono weight brush because it's a perfect circle. So you can see right there, a lot of the brushes don't have an absolute perfect circle. They're kind of ragged on the edges, or maybe more oval, so they don't work for doing perfect little polka dots. I'm having trouble doing perfect little polka dots as it is. So I probably will do, I'm going to say 2 or 3 different sizes of polka dots. Sometimes I like to keep them all one size, but right now I'm feeling like a little variety might be good. I just sort of eyeball it, keeping them a little on the outside right now. I'm not putting any right in this area. So I'm going to do one more smaller one and do that to fill in some of the spots. The good thing about polka dots is they just, I just feel like they fill in spots where it looks a little strange, and they just are very helpful. Plus they remind me of stars and the sky, and I love that. So I feel like that looks, sometimes I get carried away with polka dots. I'm like, let me just put 20 more in, and the whole thing is a giant polka dot. But I really don't think you can have too many polka dots. So yeah, so I think that looks pretty good. It's not perfect,